Rabbi Sova.
Wow, what an incredible episode we had with the one and only Rabbi Sova. Rabbi Sova has delivered over 2,000 classes on Torah Anytime, is a beloved contributor to Stories to Inspire, and is one of the few official Dirshu speakers. Renowned for his dynamic speaking style, Rabbi Sova masterfully blends deep Torah wisdom with wit, insight, and a refreshing relevance to today's world, tackling both spiritual themes and contemporary issues with equal force. But beyond all that, Rabbi Sova holds a special place in my life because he is my beloved father. In this episode, we dive into captivating conversation that spans Egyptian pyramids, the future of education, teacher salaries, and even a few unexpected pop culture gems. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed this conversation. Looking forward.
This is Mo,
And this is Aryeh,
and you're listening to
the Relatable Podcast. Let's do it.
Rabbi Sova, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It is an absolute pleasure.
It's an honor to be here.
So I had to pull a lot of strings to get this happening.
This was like a lot of struggles. It was
Yes.
It's not just one email. It wasn't one phone call.
This was, I had to speak to his manager, his advisor, the public representative, and thank God we secured him. And we're very excited for this. Thank you for coming on.
I'm very happy to be part of the Relatable Podcast, a podcast that every single one of you should be joining and subscribing and telling all your friends, everyone. This is fantastic. We have two very, very prolific, fantastic people who really know what they're doing, and they want to bring a lot of light to many people, including myself. I've been very inspired by them, and God bless both of you. Really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what a plug.
Indeed.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to start off with some...
Could you make sure that Chaver knows?
I was about to say, for the listeners who are unaware, all that was true about reaching out to the manager. Rabbi Sova and myself have a very close relationship going back close to 22 years, but over 21 years. And that being that he's my dad, which is pretty wild for those that are unaware.
Proud father.
Oh, yeah. And with that statistic, we're going to roll into a few amazing facts that we researched. That Rabbi Sova, my dad, has a significant online presence with close to 2,000 classes and lectures on platforms such as Torah Anytime. His teachings reach a global audience, making him an influential figure in the world of Torah learning. Rabbi Sova has served as a community rabbi in various cities, including Miami, Denver, and Dallas. His experience in a range of communities has allowed him to connect with people from diverse backgrounds and foster incredible growth. Rabbi Sova is also known for tailoring his lectures and classes to appeal to diverse audiences, ranging from those with strong yeshiva education to individuals having their initial exposure to Judaism. His ability to connect with people on various topics make him a sought-after speaker.
That was amazing.
What a resume.
That's
what
right.
a resume.
Beauty. And with that, I think we're going to first start off with, we mentioned the Torah Anytime, over 2,000 classes. And over Shabbos, we had crazy divine providence. We were walking by ourselves. We were supposed to have a meal, just myself, father, and sister. And then a bunch of, what were they, like 18, 20-year-olds came over. They tapped you. What did they say?
Rabbi, we'd like to have a meal. Could you please allow us to come to your meal? And like, I guess we have enough food. And they came. And one of them said to me, your voice sounds very familiar, like I've heard you before. So I was like, no, why are you saying that? And wait a second, are you on Torah Anytime? So shout out to Torah Anytime, by the way. Fantastic, unbelievable platform. Literally people all over the world are able to be inspired. And they came over and we had a great time with them. Wonderful.
So how did you get on Torah Anytime originally? Can anybody get on? Can Rabbi Mo Floor get on that as well? Or
the real answer is it's totally divine providence. If God wants you to get on it, you'll get on it. They have a waiting list, as far as I know. They have a waiting list of over 1,000 people that are trying to get on.
Why are they so selective?
They want to make it as less of a position that you have that so many speakers with so many different topics that people will be just overwhelmed. And they just want to get a specific type of speaker and topics that they know are more or less, they could just basically go completely blind and you take over from there. And how I got that, it's actually a very interesting story. There's a rule which basically is that if you want blessing to happen in your life, I heard a great line which is that any blessing that you want, success is the definition or the intersection, that's what they say. Success is the intersection between preparation, meeting, opportunity.
Nice.
You've been at an opportunity that it was granted to you, but if you didn't have the proper preparation, you won't make any use of it. And the exact truth is you'll be preparing. If you don't have the opportunity, then it won't happen. And what happened was so I had that. A number of years ago, I went to a different function, and someone said, you're really good. Maybe you should approach Torah anytime. I said, I could reach out to them. I've heard of the platform. Fine, okay. So I emailed them. I got their email. Nothing. I didn't hear a response. Zero. Not even, we're considering it. Thank you for zero. Nothing. It just, I knew it got, but I knew it got accepted because it didn't bounce back. So I knew somebody saw it. And I figured, okay. But I did my proper ishtalos, my proper way of getting to the channels that are proper. And then you just hope and pray that it's going to work out. And that opportunity came one day when I was the rabbi in a Sephardic shul for 12 years, faking the Sephardi accent.
No way.
Yeah.
Dark skin.
That's mad cool.
Big eat over there.
A lot.
Shabbat meal and the chumim.
Hachamim.
The guys that we had over were Sephardi. You reverted straight back into that.
Oh yeah.
That's
Acting
mad cool.
role, yeah.
Can we get an impression real quick? I'm very curious.
You're a
Chazan also?
Chazan,
Wow,
sure.
Chazan, there you go.
Aryeh had his bar mitzvah there, and he did Sfaradi.
I leaned Sephardi, bro.
He laned Sfaradi straight up. He did a great job.
We're not going to do my impression now. We'll let Rabbi Sova star on this one. But well-known fact. So what happened? So you were the rabbi of the Sephardi congregation.
When I was rabbi of the Sephardi congregation, so one of the things that we had that Sephardim are very into, thank God, is they have very big kavod for the Bet Knesset, which is that when you come to God's house, you have to show that one of the things that they go crazy on, this is just FYI, if you're an Ashkenazi, there are a lot of faux pas. I should really make a book about it, of a lot of things that Sephardic Bet Knesset for dummies, and then put it for Ashkenazi Jews. But there's a few of them that they don't know. First of all, you don't klops by Slach Lanu. Ashkenazim do not know that. Sephardim don't do that. Yes, they don't know that. I remember one time we had a very famous speaker. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to say something bad about him. He's fantastic. And he got up there and he said, and we all know we have Salach Lanu. And everyone's looking around. He's like, what's he talking about? He didn't know what he was saying. And I went over to him and whispered to him. I said, they don't say Salach Lanu. What? They don't? Right? Okay. There's a few other things that are like faux pas that you don't know. If you don't know what's going on, you're just like, what is going on? And one of the things that they have there is that Kavod Bet Knesset is paramount. There are some places actually that if you cross your legs like this, somebody will go over to you and go, don't do that here. You have to sit straight up like that. And they're very, very careful about that. And what started sneaking into the Beit Knesset was people would have their phones. So I led this revolution. There's an unbelievable group of people. They literally make what's called phone lockers. They make this, that they have the phone lockers with the chargers. Everything is drilled, ready to go. They have it ready to be shipped out to your Beit Knesset, your shul, ready to go. You just tell them, they literally charge you cost price for whatever it is and the shipping. That's it.
That's unbelievable.
They don't make any money for it. And they said, if you want to, so thank God I got a few shuls in the South Florida area to actually have that.
The purpose is to keep your phones.
Keep the phone away, and not only keep it away, your phone gets charged, and not only gets charged, you don't get distracted. You're able to focus on speaking to Hashem, and for the few minutes that you're able to actually talk to God, just talk to God. Don't be on your phone. Don't be checking on your email if God answered your prayers. That's not what it's there for. Just keep it there. Anyways, so what happened was, I had a rule. This is my own rule that I had in my head, which was that if somebody pulled out their phone, they didn't know. We put a bunch of signs. Please be careful with the sanctity of the synagogue. We ask that you please do not bring in your phone. We have lockers. If you must bring your phone, please put it on silent. Okay, fine.
Pretty reasonable.
Very reasonable. People, obviously, they don't see it, or English is not their first language, or they're just not interested. And whatever the reason is, they come in, and sometimes they forget. So I had a rule. It was my own rule that I made up, which was that when people would, during Chazar Sashatz, people don't know this, that when you have the repetition of the Shemona Esrei, that's actually more important than you doing your own private one. Because here it's everyone coming together, and it's a very big distraction. And the reason why it's a distraction is because it's that more powerful. The example I always love giving is if you go to the Kotel, it's the hardest place on planet Earth to pray because that's where all the prayers go. Since it's ground zero of such high magnitude, the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination will not allow you to tap in and zero in. I had that one time I said, you know what, I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm not going to look at anyone. I'm not even going to look up at nothing. I'm going to be just zeroed in on my tefillah. I'm going to close my eyes. And basically I got lifted up out of my spot and I got completely separated from the rest of my family. And I had no idea where I was. I probably ended up in a Sephardi minyan. I don't know. But I moved off to the side, or a Lubavitch minyan, or whatever on the other side. I moved off to, I didn't know where I was. But it's very difficult to do that. And anyways, I had a rule. And the rule was that when people would pull out their phone, I would basically give like a little timer on my mind. Okay, bracha number 1, bracha number 2. When they got to bracha number 3, and they still had their phone, because sometimes people have that, they text them, where are you? How long is it going to be? So a person will be like TTYL or 5 min or talk to you later, whatever. They'll be like, just like, I can't talk right now. They'll just do that, the custom, automatic, the custom thing. I can't talk right now, talk later or something. Fine. People will do that and then they'll remember, I'll have to turn it off. That's most people. Most people are very decent and they'll do that if they forget. But then you have some people who are literally, they're addicts and they can't control themselves. Once they pull it out, they got sucked in. It's like they can't let go.
I don't blame them, by the way. That's the whole point of social media.
The algorithms are good.
Yeah,
the algorithms are very good.
They're making money for a reason.
Yeah.
They're pretty good at what they do.
These people pulled out their phones, and after 3 times, I would walk over to them. I didn't mean to do that. I would try to get their attention, but you can't because they're stuck on their phone. I tried to get some other people's attention, and they didn't feel comfortable. I figured, you know what? I'll walk over to them. You come into God's house, so what do you want? You're breaking the rule. So I would walk over to them and be like out. Like, get out.
Wow.
Go out and go to the locker room. Okay, fine. A lot of them did. One day, 7 people pulled out their phone at the same time.
It's a world record right there.
It's a minion already.
3, 2, 1.
7 people pulled out their phone, and I'm wondering to myself, what am I going to do? I'm like, you know what? I can't go over to all of them and tell them, put out your like it's a circus. You and you and you and you. And you. What? I'm supposed to answer myself. I said, you know what? Normally I didn't speak between Mincha and Marav. I told the Chazan, I said, do me a favor. I said, after you say Aleinu, I said, I have to speak for just a brief few moments. He's like, what, is everything okay? I said, just for a few moments. Fine, he finished. Everyone's looking to Hurachum. I gave a clap on the shtender, a hit on the shtender, and I said, we all remember COVID when God threw us out of his home and said, I don't want your prayers. I don't need your prayers. Get out. You totally disrespect me in my home, and you're bringing these devices in. I don't need your prayers. Get out. That should have been a hard reset on how we approach prayer. And that should have been a time we should have been like, wait 1 second. I need to deserve to come to this house to be able to talk to you. And we're pulling out our phone. I said, imagine it's Shabbat today. And somebody pulls out their phone in the middle of prayer. You'd be like, what are you doing? You're ruining the whole vibe for me about my Shabbat. This is my time to connect and be in God's house, in God's day, and you're ruining it by pulling out your phone. How selfish can you be? Oh, you're going to tell me that maybe you have a medical reason. Okay, that's not for me to judge. I don't know why you have it, but at least go outside. We have lockers for that. Or if you have to take the phone call, at least have the decency to put it on silent or vibrate and then go outside. No one has to come in here and know that you have a phone. I said, in this room, it's Shabbat. You don't pull out a phone in this room. This is a room of God's sanctity, and he wants to hear your prayers. He doesn't want you glued to your phone. Please start Arvit.
Wow.
After that, a guy walks over and he goes, Rabbi, that was phenomenal. Do you usually speak? I said, yeah, thank God I do. He says, you know who I am? I'm Shimon Kol Yaakov. You ever heard of Torah Anytime? I said, of course I heard of Torah Anytime. He says, well, it happens to be Hashgacha Pratit. I happen to be Divine Providence. My mom and I, we were looking here in Miami Beach for certain properties and had to pray Mincha Arvit. So someone said, go to the only Sephardi synagogue in Miami Beach, and we came to you. And wow, that's great. Do you usually?
That's crazy.
But listen to this. Do you usually speak between Mincha Arvit? I said, no, I usually don't. I don't. Whoa. I didn't even know he was in the crowd. He said, you're starting tomorrow.
No way. He bumped you up.
And I said to him, I tried emailing you. What happened? And he said, we have a waiting list of over 600 to 700 people. That was back then. Now it's a waiting list of over 1,000 people. So to answer your question, it's total, absolute kiss from Hashem. And the responsibility you have. I always used to joke about it. Whoever did this, praise on to you, because it gives a lot of a boost to the speakers when you have that you're speaking, and a lot of times you're speaking sometimes to an empty room. And we met Rebel Wine today, and 93 years old, 9 hours sharp like a whip, my gosh. And I always wanted to meet him and schmooze with him, and I got that opportunity today. And I heard a class from him one time. Somebody said to him, Rabbi Wine, your classes are so monumental. You probably speak to thousands of people. I mean, it sounds like the way his oratory skills and the passion that he had, it literally comes across like he's speaking to 1,000 people. He said, well, actually, I was speaking to 4 people. They're like, 4 people? How did you do that? How in the world did you do that? He said, simple. I wasn't speaking to the 4 people. I was speaking to thousands. So it gave me suddenly an insight that when you're speaking, you need to speak and imagine you're speaking to millions of people. And I'll never forget this. I remember I was on Torah Anytime, and I have a camera and I have a crowd. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. I remember it was in the beginning, one of my first classes, and I would usually have like 1, 2, 3 people in the crowd. So I'm speaking to them. Anyways, I'm speaking, and there was only one guy in the room. I'm like, okay, fine. At least there's one person in the room. I'm speaking. Suddenly, I'm getting to the crux of the entire premise of the class. I'm getting there, and the guy suddenly stands up and walks out.
Wow.
Not only was it by the crux of the class, I was about to give such a beautiful tie-in story that showed and highlighted this. I was like, what? How can he walk? That means he wasn't even listening to begin with. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking to myself, I'm having this battle raging in my head saying, just cut the class. This is dumb. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing this for? Who's even watching you? I'm saying, you know what? Rabbi Wine. I remember Rabbi Wine. Rabbi Wine is speaking to, I'm speaking to thousands of people. So I just kept on going. And then I posted it to Torah Anytime. This is before they had what's called a speaker dashboard. I'm going to explain in a second what that is. Before they had that, I posted it. That was my first viral class.
Nice.
That I had close to 3,000 people watching that. I didn't even know that. Wow. I only knew that until after they have something called a speaker dashboard, which is they show you stats. Your most popular class, what city in the world is listening to your class the most? Like, take a guess. Top 4 cities as of last week. What do you think the top 4 cities?
Oh, what do you got? Let's go one by one.
New York.
Where in New York? Tell me specifically. A city.
Cities.
Ooh.
Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, probably.
5.
Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, nice.
That was it? That was one?
Yes, that was.
Brooklyn,
that,
okay. Lakewood.
That's number 1, by the way.
Lakewood, New Jersey.
Nope.
Miami?
No?
Nope.
Really?
Not Miami. Israel? Somewhere in Israel?
Yeah. Well.
Ramat Shemesh.
No.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You guys are close. You guys are
We have
close.
Beit Shemesh listeners, by the way. I was looking on Instagram stats, and we have like 10% Beit Shemesh listeners.
We got to raise those guys.
Yeah.
For all the RBS listeners. Wait, so we got,
we
what
got
else
Brooklyn. That was
Brooklyn,
first one.
Yerushalayim is number 4.
Yeah.
Wow. 2.
Up South America? What are we
I'm
thinking?
thinking like Kansas City or something.
What?
Like something Chutz Lamachna. I don't know.
Hint. Or go.
Hint.
What do you got?
Big cities.
Okay.
Baltimore.
LA.
LA? No.
No. Texas. Houston.
No. You're going to be shocked.
I'm getting
Chicago.
I see where you're going with
Okay,
this. So you're going to be
what do you
shocked. Brooklyn, London, Petach Tikva, Yerushalayim.
Petach Tikva. That's
Whoa.
random.
I get emails from people. One guy is Panama and Google Translate.
That's very cool.
Hi, Grand Rabbi
No way.
of Florida South, beach of Miami. You understand?
That's so funny.
You clearly tell
In
they
Spanish.
did a Google Translate. They did copy paste, right? So,
Wow.
Rabbi, I'd like to know. You inspired me so much, and this class, I have so many questions. I had one. I told Shimon Kol Yaakov, I said, I want you to know that you literally are saving people. I got one email from a guy. He says to me, I consider you my Rebbe, my rabbi, and if I were to go over to my rabbi and tell him what I'm doing, I would be, first of all, thrown out of the community, and I would probably be divorced. And basically the guy was admitting to me he was going through an extramarital stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Really heavy, like really. I started crying when I was reading it. It was so sad. You could see he was struggling, and his family was suffering, and it was just so hard. Just even talking about it right now, it brings me to tears. It was so gut wrenching. I had a long back and forth with him, and I hope he's okay now. But
Meaning, when you started out, first of all, that's unreal. I would not guess Petach Tikva. So
Yeah,
it's a
not at
huge
all.
wild
Super
card.
random.
What was coming up for me right now, as you're speaking about how this whole story came about, whenever I would come back from high school, meaning I was away, I went abroad and dormed. Not abroad, I was dorming. And whenever I'd come back for a small vacation, you would always like push me to speak. And I would always be like super nervous. I'm like, I'm not getting up. Everybody's judging me. The first few times stunk. I remember I would speak super fast, like, and just mumble everything.
So much said this
And
week's
everyone's like, "Oh, sick!" And everyone's like, "What did he just say?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a crazy speaker." And like my confidence built up over time. So it's cool to be able to how your story came about, and it's kind of a full circle moment as we're sitting over here as well. Thank God we have our own platform as well. So it's just like a cool, nice full circle moment that I want to point out. My question is that when you first started out, I'm assuming that you always wanted to be within the spiritual world of leading people. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Did you ever imagine before the advent of technology that you'd have this amount of influence? Petach Tikva, London, what have you seen shifted? And do you see your responsibilities also shifting now that you have so much more of a diverse demographic than your actual city that you currently reside in?
Fantastic question. I just have to put one correct question on what you said. Up until 10th grade, my aspirations in life was I was going to be the first ever Orthodox actor in Hollywood or voiceover for cartoons. My imitation
That would have been
skills,
fantastic.
That would have been
idea.
fantastic. And I realized that if Hashem gives you a gift, if God gives you a gift, that you're able to talk a certain way and you're able to modulate your voice a different way. And you could talk like that. And you're able to have some inflection. You're able to do all these different things that make it very attractive for people to want to listen to you. Then obviously that's a gift from Hashem. It's a gift from God. And you have to be able to capitalize on that. So even back then, I already had dreams of world domination. I had dreams of being able to spread a lot of awareness and spread that gift that I have. And I do remember, it's interesting that the question that you asked, I do remember having a discussion with God. I remember one time I made a deal. I said when I was in high school, and then I shifted. 10th grade, I decided, wait a second, there are a lot of people trying to do what I'm doing, but how many people could do this in the spiritual realm? People who are able to articulate a very hard idea or ideal, and it just comes across as wrong, and I don't see it that way. I see it in a very positive way, and I'm able to express it a different way. And I felt that was a responsibility upon myself to do that. And I made a deal with Hashem that if I'm able to have that opportunity to be in a leadership position, that I'm not going to let him down. I hope I'm trying to do that, but I really feel in a way it's like that. So in answer to your question, do I feel that because the demographic is quote unquote changing? I don't think it's changing. Can I speak differently to different people? Yes, obviously. I would have to be able to adapt depending on who my crowd is. What makes her anytime very unique about it is that I don't know who my crowd is.
Right.
And I just got to go with being me.
Nice.
And I do believe people actually like that. They like the realness and they like the authenticity, as you would say.
Mm-hmm.
They really like that. It comes across. People see this is a real person. I could totally have a schmooze with him. It's funny. I had one of my congregants. I was schmoozing with him, and he says, Rabbi, I just want to let you know, I really enjoy talking to you, and I think my boss would enjoy talking to you too. I'm very close with him. I said, sure, I'd love to speak to your boss. He said, okay, Rabbi, he's available this upcoming Sunday at 12 o'clock, and you can meet at the pizza shop on 41st Street in Miami Beach. I said, great, okay, what's your boss's name? He said, have you ever seen the show Shark Tank? I said, I've heard of it, whatever. So there's the guy, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful,
What?
the bald guy.
I didn't know about this.
I said, okay, fine. So we were supposed to have lunch, but Kevin canceled on me.
Wow.
But I had a whole list of questions.
That's too high and dry right there. It's messed up.
Yeah, I
Hi,
had
do
a
you
whole
know
list of
about
questions. No, I did a little bit of a background on him. I had a whole list of questions. And my questions would have been like, are there certain things that you felt you gained living in the very limited background that you did? He lived in a very poor home. I think he was raised by a single mother. And does that carry out in any bitterness in decisions that you make?
Wow.
Not accusing of him,
Yeah.
because I'm sure people would say that, Mr. Wonderful, you come across as a jerk. I'm not a jerk. I say it the way it is. But that comes from somewhere. He obviously was told that when he was younger. Mm-hmm. So the way you would frame that question is, do you ever feel that there's any bitterness in what you're doing? And what is some business advice that you feel is something that is timeless that no one else except for you sees? I mean, I had a few questions for him, and obviously to extrapolate those ideas and put it into a person's own personal life. The Gemara tells us that you can learn wisdom even from non-Jews too. So that was something I was looking forward to. But I get that all the time. Very, very influential, very, very powerful people. They like when you're real and you're very open with them. So in answer to your question, does it change the demographics? 100% it does. But I think what's really cool about this is you have people that you don't even know. Like you don't even know who's listening to your material, your content, but people like it. It's relatable, and therefore people like it.
Nice. Wow.
Love it.
It's crazy how the timeless messages are always the same. In a room of 100 people, what's always going to perpetuate is being true to yourself.
And authenticity and
exactly.
sincerity, yeah.
So same thing over here. Even though you don't know who's listening, you could imagine and convolute in your minds what other people want to hear, which is not going to go over well. And like you're saying, to just stay true to oneself. I love that.
Completely agree. So true.
Okay.
Do you think about Torah Anytime? I want to ask you, first of all, do they, I've noticed some people that I follow, they don't have on the platforms. Do they pick and choose based off?
Absolutely, they pick and choose who
Is
they
it
have.
it's a little mainstream, no? Is that crazy to say?
What's mainstream?
Meaning the speakers that, even though it's a very diverse crowd, you have Sephardi, Ashkenazim,
Yes.
but it's kind of like one general flow.
One general flow, yes, that is true. I had a number of months ago, I did a podcast with another rabbi. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Very, very unique, very wise. He's 2 years older than me, sharp like a whip. And we have great podcasts where we respectfully disagree with one another, but totally destroy each other. It's awesome. It's great. No notes.
Do you have a name?
You want to know his name? Yeah, Rabbi Shlomo Sprung. Rabbi Shlomo Sprung
and
is
the name of the podcast. What was it? Or
we had a podcast. It was called Two Rabbis, One Shul. Or Stained Glass podcast.
That's mad
We had different
funny.
names about it, and it was fantastic. We talked about different issues.
what were some of the topics that you guys covered?
We spoke about what would be. I'll tell you, we had I think 3 podcasts, and then number 3 got pulled, which led to number 2 and number 1 being pulled.
Pulled from where? From Torah
From
Anytime?
Torah Anytime. So
Whoa,
this is
censored?
going to your original question of,
Yeah.
is it mainstream? The answer is yes, it is conforming, although it's different, but it's conforming under a certain rubric, clearly because I went off the reservation when I did this podcast, because the complaint that they had was there were certain things that were being said that do not conform with the standards that Torah Anytime is trying to abide by, of which I pushed back and said, who's making these standards? And you're a wise enough person, you can listen to the podcast yourself, and then you can make your own judgment and see if that's something that you feel is appropriate or not. They said, I understand what you're saying, Rabbi, you're making a lot of sense. God willing, when you have your own platform, then
Oh,
you
they
could
pushed
post
you.
whatever you'd like. But for right now, we can't have that entire anytime. So in answer to your question, what did we post? I believe the first class we were talking about what is there in the Jewish community in particular that we could do to make things better.
Can you give me a brief
Sure.
oversight on that?
We discussed, I discussed, for example, Shabbos observance needs to be sacrosanct. You have to have that people know that although technically, yes, you could do that, Shabbos is not what you could do. I always tell people, the question you have to ask yourself when it comes to Shabbos is it, I want him to be happy, or do I want him to be happy? That's really what the struggle is. So if him to be happy means I go out of my comfort zone and wear specific type of clothing, or I wear specific, or I do specific things, or I stay in shul longer, or I learn more, or I do things more, that's all for him, so I connect to him. Or am I doing it for me? And therefore, I like to have good stuff, and I like to engage in certain pleasures that I like to do, certain pastimes, whatever they may be. And I like to sleep, and I like to have a good time. I like to dress the way however I want. And I threw in a thing about with scooters too. I tell people, scooters is a very simple thing. To me, it's a very simple thing. It's 1 of 3 things. You're either sick, or you think you're 6. Then you need a scooter. So people get very insulted. They go, Rabbi, I live 3 miles away. And my response to that is, I had someone in my shul. He used to take a bike to our shul. And I told him, Lo nachon, that's not proper. He said, Rabbi, the Ben Ish Chai supposedly said that bikes were allowed. And then they say, Rav Ovadia afterwards said, Ben Ish Chai had charata about telling that to people because he actually saw people fixing the chains. That's the problem. He said, but it became basically a chilul of Shabbos. It became a desecration of God's name, of Shabbos. So I said, it starts with the scooters and it leads to other things too. Now you're going to be like, oh, but would I allow a child to do it? Yes, I would. If a person lives 3 miles away, yes, I would. But you know what this guy did when I told him? I said, he lived miles away. I said, what? You can't do that. He said, what am I supposed to do? I said, live closer. To this guy's great credit, he sold his apartment the very next week and moved a block away from the shul.
What
crazy.
That's crazy.
I was gonna say, what is wrong with scooters? Is it like actual Machal
It's
Shabbos?
not,
or
no,
just
it's not
proper?
Chilul Shabbos. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos. I want you to just imagine. Imagine you're meeting President Trump.
Yeah.
And he's down the hallway. And someone says, you need to get there right now. Would you walk briskly? Or would you take a scooter and go, wee?
Scooter would be much cooler than
Of
walking.
course, scooter's
but-
going to be much
Would
cooler.
make a
That's
great
cool.
reel, but
Yeah.
Oh, that would make a great reel.
If it was Donald Trump,
if
maybe
you
he
want to
would
make,
buy it
no,
and
but
probably
all
not.
joking aside, if you want to make a good impression that you're a serious guy and he should take you seriously, you're not going with a scooter. You're not doing it. And people were like, well, everyone else. I said, forget about that. I said, can you imagine you're with your children? You're walking with your children to shul. This is the time that they will forever remember. Ari, I'm sure you remember the times we walked to shul together, and there were times that we had a lot of great conversations with each other. I remember that, walking with my father too, holding his hand and asking him all these questions. And even to this day, I'm 44 years old. Whenever I have opportunity to walk with my father, great, that's a wonderful thing. You could talk about things and just discuss things. When you're on a scooter, you're not talking to the guy next to you. They're either, even if they're quote unquote leveling with each other, one person's going ahead, one person's going behind. So I said that's something that I would fix in the Jewish community. He said he would do something else with tefillah, but he said, and he pushed back on that. He said, what's wrong with scooters? I have many very distinguished people I told him, I said, I'm just saying from a practical standpoint, if you want to be people missing this opportunity that they have, they can be walking with their father, having these awesome conversations, and instead you're not doing that because it's more convenient for you to come to the shul. People don't realize this. Conservative Judaism, when they first started, they had Orthodox rabbis. And the Orthodox, quote-unquote, Orthodox rabbis, they rationalized that in order for the congregation to thrive, not survive, thrive, we have to allow the people who live very far away to be able to come with cars on Shabbos. Because how else are they going to come? But what they didn't realize in the long term, what that does is, so what's the difference if I live 5 miles or 50 miles or 75 miles or 125 miles? If I can get in a car, I get in a car. And of course I'll come.
Once you're 75 miles away.
They're 75 miles, and then one day they have it, and it just doesn't work out. And then that way, okay, I haven't gone. Whatever, I'll come Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur time. That's the only time. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And people stopped coming, and just there literally was low. So I'm just trying to say is that something like that, where you'd be like, so insignificant. What's the big deal? It's that little step, that little nudge the wrong way, that really could set it off. Now, again, if it's for little kids, like I told you, little kids, go right ahead. But the same way you wouldn't, God forbid, say to somebody, well, he does need his diapers. Diapers? What are you talking about? Are we talking about someone who is a child? Talking about an elderly person who, God forbid, they can't control their bowels? That's sad. But you're talking about a regular functioning adult, and they're doing something that kids do. As I say in Hebrew, lo naim. That's not appropriate. That's not like, what are you doing? So people have to realize that. So we spoke about that.
So we're within the, first of all, fascinating conversation, within that dialogue between you and the rabbi, how do you respectfully disagree with somebody? So whenever I hold of one opinion, like we spoke with Rav God before, if I hold of something, that means because I truly believe in it. And all of a sudden Mo is like, what are you saying? It's the exact opposite. Now, what would be your advice to your average listener who says, now what do I do? Mo's completely invalidating me. If I what's the proper approach to have a respectful conversation and meeting some common ground?
First of all, you could respectfully disagree with somebody and say that we don't agree at all, and that's fine, that's okay, and you just move on. That's the real answer. I found dialogue to be dialogue. It's two people. You are having a discussion. Not necessarily do you have to agree, but, here's the big but you have to respectfully disagree. Meaning, Barack Obama, I'm not a fan of his policies, but besides for him being a prolific speaker and a nice guy to those people he liked, so besides for that, he was fantastic at arguing. Why? Because he did research on the other side. He wanted to understand what the other side was coming from, why they were doing what they were doing, and then try to anticipate that, and then why he still believed that. His line that he said was, a no is, you didn't understand fully yet why you should say yes. Wow. That was the line he said. And that's really true, which is, you have to respectfully understand where they're coming from. They say, unbelievable thing, it says, there will never be a fight like Korach and his congregation that ganged up against Moshe. And the question is, ask Rabbi Yehoshua Sova, who, by the way, he had himself a fight with Yaakov Emden. Rabbi Yehoshua Sova says, what are you talking about? There will never be another fight. Unfortunately, we see many instances in the history of the Jewish people that we have fights. So what does that mean? So like this. Lo yeh kekarach lechadasa means there will never be that Moshe is 100% right, Karach 0. 100 to 0, you'll never have. 90 to 10, you will have. 10% of what they're saying, 100% right. That 10%, they nailed it. They are 100%. I always tell it to people, if you want to have a good argument with somebody who you don't agree with ideologically, politically, or whatever, just hear where they're coming from. If you hear where they're coming from, first of all, the validation that they get is actually what they're craving, so give them that validation. But more than that, you're showing a real respect. The Gemara even tells us, it says that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they argued all the time, but they still did not withhold from being able to have their children marry with one another, eat at each other's houses. What do you mean? You fundamentally disagree with this person. But it's not personal. I'm able to not take it personal. So in answer to this question, I view this rabbi as a very wise man, very sharp. I disagree with a lot of the things that he says. I disagree with his outlook on different things. But as a person, I respect him. This is a great guy. Like, I would love to get to know more about him, and you'd like to get to know more about me. So that already, and by the way, and people really enjoy that. They enjoy, and I say that's a real machlokes l'shem shemaim. That's a real argument you have that people see that you really mean what's best for people. And if we ever get into that, by the way, so I teach at Lubavitch, and what I'm about to say is going to be like, oh, and thank God a book came out which validated what I've been saying for many, many years. I learned in Litvish yeshivas, and people hear certain things that they hear, and then I was teaching in Chabad, so I hear what I hear there too, and I told somebody, I said, there is no way that in Gan Eden right now, Rav Shach and Lubavitch Rebbe, Lubavitch Rebbe and Rav Shach are learning Bechavrusa right now. They have to be, because the amount of hashpah, the amount of influence that they had on the Jewish world, on the religious world, which now gives off to everyone else, is so profound, and they meant for the good of the Jewish people. As post-Holocaust, how do we recover? Do we recover and strengthen from within, or do we strengthen from outside? And the answer is both. It's an awesome tag team. Lubavitch grabs guys off the street, strap on tefillin. No, man, you're Jewish. He's like, I'm Jewish. Yes, yeah. Logan Paul, you're Jewish. Yeah, Mel's Toast 710, right? You saw that? Jake Paul, whatever. Well, you got to get Logan next, right? But okay, Jake Paul, right? Jew got tefillin. I'm like, my gosh, that's crazy, right? You never know where that's going to lead. Then when they get through the door, they're like, okay, now what? And that's when the Litvish guys step in, right? They pump him up, and then the Hasidic guys finish him off, and then boom, the guy wants to be modern Orthodox and be able to imbibe all. There's such a rich, beautiful tapestry of Judaism, and you keeping Torah and mitzvahs, you have so many options to choose from. And it shouldn't be, well, our way is the only way. Yeah, okay, you could say that too, but we're all part of the 12 tribes. Every tribe has a lot of pride in what they do, but at the same time, we're all one unit at the same time. So there was a book called Incredible 2. I think it's page 312. I don't know.
What paragraph?
I don't know. Incredible number 2. It's from Art Scroll, from Yossi Wallace from Arachim. He basically says the story. The story was with Mr. Younggrass from Miami. He's a very big donor, Hashem Shgim Refuah Shlema, and he told Rabbi Yossi Wallace, he said, Rabbi Yossi, are you going to be in Brooklyn? He says, yeah, I am, whatever, I have to collect. He says, it's so hard to collect. He says, Yossi, you got to widen your net, like what we're doing here. You got to widen your net. Have you approached any Lubavitchers? He says, well, I don't know. Arachim is run by Rav Shach under his auspices, and he spoke very strongly against the Rebbe. I'm not really sure if that's going to fly well. He says, worst comes to worst, Yossi, just go for $1. You got $1 now. All you need to do is just go, hey, I got this from the Rebbe, and then you'll see the money pouring in. Brilliant marketing strategy. So he's waiting online Sunday morning with thousands of other people waiting to get the dollars distributed. And when finally comes his turn, he gets the $1. And they say, by the way, the Rebbe, when he would look at you, he like, it felt like he was like looking through your soul. He looks at Yossi Wallace, locks in at him, and Yossi Wallace didn't know what to do. He just blurted out, Ich bin a Talmud von Rav Shach. I'm a student of Rav Shach. Suddenly everyone heard that, like, right?
Get him!
Yeah, exactly.
Get him out!
Yeah, you'll never see that on the videos, by the way.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, Ich bin a Talmud von Rav Shach. So suddenly the Bible Rebbe says, oh, really? He turns to his Gabbai, says, give me more dollars. Says, please give this to Rav Shach and tell him, as he's giving him the money, and tell him, I daven for him every day. He's one of the Gedolei Adar, and Klal Yisrael needs him.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So Mr. Younger turns to Yossi Wallace after he got that. He goes, Yossi, get on the plane right now. Go to Bnei Brak. Go to Kiryat HaYeshiva and tell Rav Shach this story. You're going to make peace with all of the religious Jews.
Wow.
He says, I'm going home. No, go direct. Anyways, he got off the plane, went directly to the yeshiva. He went to Rav Shach and told him the story. Rav Shach's looking at him. He says, do you have a microphone on you? He's like, no. He's like, who sent you here? He says, who sent me here? No one sent me here. Why are you telling me this? Like, Rav Shach thought it was a setup. Like, he didn't know, like, why are you, like, what are you trying, you want me to say something? Like, what do you want to, he says, no, I just want to tell you, like, I want the yeshiva know that the Rebbe wishes him well.
Wow.
So Rav Shach's thinking, he goes, if you happen to be back in Brooklyn, just let the Rebbe know I daven for him too. He's one of the Manhigei Adar, and Klal Yisrael needs him as well.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Look in the book, Incredible 2. Please look at there.
Crazy.
You'll see yourself. So when people say this whole thing, I heard Rav Shach say, Rav Shach was talking in pain saying, what are they doing? And by the way, just an FYI, just so you should know, I'm teaching in Lubavitch, 70%, they talk like Rav Shach against Mishachist. Literally.
Oh, really?
Mishachists are people who believe the Rebbe is still alive. They will not go to the aisle. They won't visit the Rebbe because what do you mean? He's here. He's actually here. You just don't see him.
He's hiding in a cave learning somewhere.
What?
He's hiding in a cave learning somewhere.
Not even in the cave. He's here. No. He's here. You have to feel him. So people talking about like you're out of your minds. What are you doing? By the way, you should just know most Hasidim, they're never going to admit it. Lubavitch is the only one that's like proud of it. They're like, yeah,
right.
That they'll say when Mashiach will come, Mashiach's going to be Rabbi Nachman Mendel Schneerson. They say it straight up. The Rebbe is Mashiach when Mashiach will come. Right now, 70-30 if he's alive. 70-30 he say he's not.
Sure, right, nice.
And 30 say that he's not. He is. But most of them do. But the way they talk like, these guys are like driving us off the edge. They're making us look like lunatics. It's like so funny. Wow. Mashiach literally said those words. He says, what are you doing? And by the way, I want you to know, I have a whole take on this. The Rebbe knew people were saying he was Mashiach, so why didn't he stop it? Everyone asks that question. Why didn't he stop it?
But there's a famous speech of, right, people, what was that video?
He was just getting people riled up, and he had a stroke.
They're
singing Yichiyad Ne'enu Melech HaMashiach, and he was going like that. And he was just getting people riled up because he saw that people looked so heartbroken that he had a stroke. And I'm sorry, it wasn't even his right arm. It was his left arm because he couldn't move his right side. And he was sitting there getting people riled up, trying to say, because he wanted so much that when people believe in Mashiach, it will be brought. And fine, believe in me. I don't care. Believe that thing's Mashiach. Right. You're believing in Mashiach. That was his attitude. His attitude was just bring it into the people's consciousness, and that is just going to bring Mashiach because now it becomes a reality. I now plant it in people's minds.
I like that a lot.
Do you think it was just taken out of context completely?
Absolutely taken out of context. When you listen to any of his speech, now you'll tell me the Brisker Rav, Rav Aaron Kotler, they said very sharp lines when he became the Rebbe in 1953, and he said his first Maimer, Basi Lagani, and what he did was he quoted this Medrash in Shir Hashirim that the seventh is always chaviv, is always very precious in the eyes of Hashem. And basically what he was saying was that I'm being put in a position to prepare everyone for Mashiach.
Because he was the seventh Rebbe.
Because I'm the seventh Rebbe, and a number of people took that to mean, I'm Mashiach. And he did not mean that. What he meant to say was that you need to prepare. If I'm going to be, for some reason, I'm stuck with this. I don't know why, but if it's being put on me, then obviously we have a mandate to greet Mashiach, and therefore, whoever that person is, let's greet him. And people took that. They're going to say, well, the people who are big Talmidei Chachamim, they read it wrong. I don't know. But what I do know is that Talmidei Chachamim are allowed to argue with each other, but we, the small-minded people that don't get nuance and we don't get what they're saying and we think it's like a color war or it's like our favorite professional team going against another team and it's like some game. It's not a game. You have to know Talmidei Chachamim are mountains. They're gigantic people, such spiritual people we don't even know. And then when they have an argument with each other, we have to know. We don't even know what they're arguing about. And we have to recognize that. We have to say, well, you have to pick a side. What does that mean, pick a side? They're wonderful people. I don't know. Obviously, I grew up not Lubavitch, so obviously I would go with what Rabbi Yehoshua would say. That's obviously. But when people say such ridiculous things about the other side, he wasn't a Talmid Chacham, he didn't know what he was saying, he quoting other people, or he was too innovative, or he was too strict, and it came from the same spot of love and how we're going to save the Jewish people from eradication, from the biggest destruction since the time of the first and second temple, that our people got slaughtered in mass and no one said a word. Now what do we do? How do we rebuild? And you have to recognize that. They both came from a place of love. And people that perpetuate this real baseless hatred, that you say to people, I'd rather pray at home than pray with a group of people from that. Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Or you'll have people saying, well, I'm not going to eat from there because I only eat from this one.
It sounds good. It's very religious. It's good.
Why? Do you know what they do? What is it exactly that they do? No, they're just not from us. The us. Us versus them.
Right. Somebody asked him, David Beshefkin, why are you not more controversial? Rabbi Yehoshua has led a revolution across the Jewish people. Why are you not canceled? He said it's very simple. There's no us. There's no them. It's just us. It's just us. How
us
can
Hasidim, us Litvaks,
us Brisk, us Mon-Orthodox, there's just us. There's no them. I don't look at it, there's them and then there's us. It's all one. It's all one. And I do think what's coming up for me over here is that for sure this generation, I could just speak for myself and what we're doing over here at Relatable is really like pushing away these illusions. I don't want to say walls. I don't want to give it credit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of walls between different sects, and there's so much nuance also. You could even go within the Orthodox sect. How many different subcultures are there, right? You have yeshivish, you have more work inclined, you have cooler, you have more open-minded, every single type in the books. And the only way, again, what even is Mashiach, that is a further discussion, but the only way to bring that energy into this world is by like tearing down these fake walls. It's garbage. It's not true. It's not true. And also, I'm just curious to hear your opinion on this. Jews always disagree. There's always huge intellectual disagreements. How do you also balance that with saying, acknowledging like, yes, there are disagreements, but deeper than that, we're all one. Not having a simpleton approach, like, we're all one, kumbaya. Like, no, you hold that and I hold this. We're polar opposites. How do you say, even when somebody completely disagrees fundamentally, that we still could be united?
The example I heard for that is if you were to follow football, the punter is not the defensive lineman and he's not the running back. He's the punter. Now, does that make him better, worse? No, it's a different position. Or if someone's in an orchestra, they play the strings or their bass or they're the clarinet or they're the drums. It doesn't make them better. It just makes them, they produce a different sound. So that's how you have to look at it. Everyone's producing their own unique sound. And I have even more than that. I would venture to say, I'm just basing this on biblical stories. When the Jewish people from the golden calf, Hashem says something very interesting. He says, Pakad pakadati, I will always remember this sin, and I will always punish with a piece of what I wanted to do back then, right now. This bothered me for years. Hashem is known as to be a very forgiving God. He forgives us. He loves us. You're harboring past history. Like, what does that mean? Hashem is saying something very powerful. He's saying, you know the root of all fighting stems from? Stems from that golden calf. What does that mean? Why was it a golden calf? Who made the golden calf? It was the Erev Rav. According to some opinions, this riffraff, they weren't even Jewish. How do we know that? They said, Ela Elohecha Yisrael. This is your God of the Jew. What do you mean, your God? It's our God. What do you mean? We're together. Answer is, no. Hey, Jew, go over there. He said something about you. You heard? Reb Shner Zalman Eliadi, did you hear? He got thrown in prison. What? Who threw the Rebbe in prison? They did. You did? Yeah. We throw them in, and they're putting it. And these non-Jews are sitting and laughing. What idiots. I'm telling you, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000% that's what happened. That they set them up, and you look through any historical concept of people fighting with one another, it was always some rabble-rousers, which I'm telling you, there's no way that they're Jewish. No way.
Wow.
I'm willing to bet money on that. I'm telling you, I know I'm right on this, because Jews just inherently don't want to fight. And yes, I can intellectually disagree with you. And answer your question.
Nice.
I can disagree with you, but it doesn't mean I discount you as a Jew. Do you hear the difference between the two?
Yeah.
You're my brother, you're my sister. If Hamas could take a captive, whether you're wearing a kippah or not, that's lo echbat lem. Like they don't care about that. A Jew is a Jew. They know that. So why don't we know that? Because
what's the blockages?
People are making divisions.
Meaning inherently we are one. We're connected.
One. Yeah.
It's certain blockages which come on later on. So what are those blockages? What creates that?
It's so sad. You see it on a daily basis. Like even 2 days ago, I was trying to get a hitch with Avi Gelfand, right? We're trying to get a hitch at the bus stop. And I was like, by the way, like I never get a hitch. He was like, we get a hitch. I get a hitch every single time. Every time I want to go, I get a hitch. I'm like, I get a hitch like one every 10 times if I'm lucky. And he's like, yeah, they're just not open-minded. Like these are hardcore Haredim, like in Kiryat Sefer. Like, why is that? It's very, very visible on the day-to-day that there's like a certain disconnect. Like you're on that side of the road, I'm on this side of the road.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Especially, it's a good point. Especially in Israel, I think there's more of a black and white divide, unfortunately. Where is this coming from?
I think that's going to change. Where that's coming from secular society putting certain fences or divisions between people, subcultures. Like, oh, if you get an Aleph plus, then you're the best in your class.
Oh, wow.
Who says you're the best in your class? Says who? Well, we gave him a standardized test. Who says standardized test is what makes them go? Says who? Mm-hmm. Why?
Nice.
What do you...
Because why
is that? No, but where does that come from? It comes from probably in European countries where they have standardized testing and they can only gauge about whether or not you're a knowledgeable person and a good student if you get good grades.
So limited and closed-minded.
Very limited and closed-minded.
Extremely. Wow, but it's
Extremely.
not even natural to us.
It's not.
Something we've picked up. That's a very good point. We have to be able to distinguish, we spoke about this with Avi also, between Judaism and Jewish culture. Because a lot of times we discount people because they're not included within the Jewish culture frame, but according to Judaism, they're awesome. They're rocking it. They're killing it. But like, nah, he wears that. He does that.
You have to be very careful with that because, unfortunately, you will have people that they'll say that their Judaism is amazing, but because they're misguided, they don't realize that they're going off the rails. That's why it's always very important to have a Rebbe. I always tell people, your Rebbe should have a Rebbe.
It's like your therapist should have a therapist.
Because you need to have someone that has oversight and be able to audit them and be able to, I've had that many times. I mean, you know that. I've had that many times where I knew 1,000% I was right. Not only 1,000% right, people call me about different ideas. So if people are calling me and asking me questions, so of course I have the right ideas about what's right for my family, but it's not. And sometimes you don't realize it. You're going down the wrong way and you need someone to oversee that and be like, no, you need to rectify that. So in answer to your question, what could we do? Just love the other person, and recognize they're a Jew. If they're struggling, ask them why they're struggling. How can I help you? And you'd be surprised. And also, you'd be surprised that the people that you thought and never gave any credibility that they're going to do something in life, they're actually the ones that are the most successful.
What was coming up for you? Anything specific?
If you were to ask anyone in my class that I grew up with, who would be most prominent, it would not be me. No way. No way. Absolutely no way.
That was a little plug right there.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
It's facts.
Why, you weren't good in school or?
No. My report cards had like B's, C's, whatever. I used to do my homework in school, whether it was right or not, I couldn't care less. I did that when I was 8 years old. I remember one time I was talking in class and the teacher says to me, Yeshua, if you keep talking, you're going to have a very heavy assignment. I said, okay, fine, whatever. I just ignored her and I kept on talking. And then after class was over, she goes, Yeshua, come here. She's like, remember I told you not to talk? I was like, yeah. He's like, you're going to have to write 100 times.
I will not talk in class.
I will not speak in Mrs., I'm not going to say her name, Mrs. whatever's class. 100 times. I said, okay.
I'm getting crazy flashbacks.
Wait one second. Wait. Hold on one second. You're going to like this story. She goes, you need to write 100 times, I will not speak in this person's class. I said, fine.
Could we make up a name, Mrs. Goldberg?
Mrs. Goldberg. Okay. I will not talk in Mrs. Goldberg's class. I said, fine. So she goes, you're not upset? I said, no. You have to have it by tomorrow. If you don't have it tomorrow, I'm calling your mother, and you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Like, okay, this is getting real. I remember I was 8 years old. I said, okay, fine. So anyways, I took a lined paper. I still have that back then. Lined paper, and I sat during the whole recess. I will not talk in her. Now, if you've ever written that, by the time you get to like 22, your hand feels like it's falling off.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why am I doing this? You know what? I'm going to show her. I remember 8 years old. I'm going to show her.
Little Rabbi Sova.
I'm going to show her.
He had a big beard back then also, by the way.
23, 24, 25. I did not number any of them. After recess, the bell rang. I come back to class with my paper, and I walk over to her, and I go, Mrs. Goldberg, I need to go to the office. I need to ask them for something. She goes, why? I said, no, I just have to ask them something. She says, okay, fine. I go over to my cubby. I take 3 sheets of empty line paper. I go to the office in Hill Academy, Denver, and I go to the secretary, and she goes, yes, Mr. Sova, how can I help you? I said, I'm coming from Mrs. Goldberg's class, and she asked me, which is true, she asked me to make 3 copies of this paper. Okay. She said, but I need to put the lined paper in the tray.
Instead of the blank paper.
I was 8 years old, okay? I didn't know how to do that. She goes, okay, here, let me help you. She puts it in the thing. I went there, pressed 3. 3 papers, perfect, on-line paper with the holes.
Whoa.
1 second. I took the paper, all 4 papers with me, back to class, did not give it to her. I waited the next day, and she comes over to me after we finished up, and she goes, you know, Mr. Sova, you have an assignment due. I said, I know, I'm giving it to you. She goes, good, because if you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. I said, I can give it to you right now if you'd like. She goes, yeah, I want it right now. So I go over to her and I put on my like really sad face. I said, after writing those 100 lines, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to talk in class again. Oh, I forgot to say this part. Before I handed it in, I wrote on page number 1 through 25,
Nice.
page number 2, 26 through 50. The next page, 51 through 75. The
Very
next one,
smart.
76 to 100. Okay, fine. Then I handed it in to her.
Very smart.
She goes, good. You're going to learn your lesson. Then what are you talking about? Yehoshua, come here. I'm like, yes.
Oh.
Why is number 1 and 76? Why are they exactly the same? I said, I don't know. She goes, how is that possible? They look exactly alike. I don't know. Did you copy this? I said, Mrs. Meyer, if I copy that, it would be with copy paper. Did you use a graph that you spent on the paper and went through? I said, does it look like graph paper? It's regular lined paper. I said, Mrs. Meyer, that doesn't make any sense. If I copied from it, wouldn't number 1 and 25 be on all 3 pages? She goes, you're right.
What a swindle.
And that's when he knew he was destined for
Yeah,
success.
that is way too intelligent for an 8-year-old. Oh my god.
Mo's really connecting with his childhood trauma over here.
I thought I was a smart little gangster.
Yeah, it's like, so no, you'll appreciate this story. So one time there was one teacher, I don't know if it's the same teacher. I did not want to be in the class. And I figured if I go to the office and tell them I have fever, I'll call my mother and she'll pick me up. Okay, fine. So I go to the office and I go, I'm really not feeling well. So the secretary says, you look totally fine. I said, can I please have the thermometer? I'm really not feeling well. I think I'm getting fever. She puts her hand and she goes, you're not having fever. I said, please, can I please have the thermometer? She goes, okay, fine. She gives me the thermometer and she walks out. I take the thermometer and I put it on a light bulb.
Oh my gosh.
Remember a second. She goes, okay, I'm coming back. When she comes back, I put it near my mouth because I'm not going to touch it, right? It's hot, right? I go like this. I give it back to her. Based on what I'm looking here,
200 degrees
your
Fahrenheit.
temperature is 250 degrees. You should be dead by now. Go back to class.
Busted. Wow, what a story. Oh my gosh.
So you're hearing new stories now.
Yeah, it's great.
Should be doing more podcasts.
Yeah. I'm diving into that's great. Whoa. Yeah, little gangster, I like that.
Yeah,
I
thought I was a little gangster.
Going
Little
into
did I
the
know.
schooling system for a second, what do you think? You're a teacher, you're there day to day, although I'm sure every school is different. As a whole, this might be a broad statement, but I do think that the education system has had the same format for, give me a number, close to 100 years? Is that accurate?
Really, that long?
Maybe
Wow.
long. I mean, like standardized testing. I mean, we could fact check that, but from Europe, I'm saying like the basic idea of there's a certain way to mark intelligence. Your success if you do well, if not, then you're a failure, and that's how you're branded. What do you think, if anything at all, needs to be adapted towards today's generation?
Definitely the standardized testing, I don't think.
That's something you don't like. I guess
I don't like that. I don't like that. I also don't like homework. I think it's not fair to people who need a home. And everyone needs a home. Everyone needs to have a place they could go, relax. I'll never forget my grandmother, Babi Sarah, she used to always say, home is for a child to have a safe sanctuary. Go home, sit on the grass, look at the clouds, imagine, daydream. That's what home is for. And I'll never forget that I tried to live with that when I was a kid, which was I would always do homework at school. And then when I would go home, I would either just relax, schmooze with my friends, play video games, watch the afternoon cartoons when my parents weren't in the house and the kids were by ourselves. Just be a kid. That's what you want to be. You want to be a kid. I'm a kid. I am a child.
You should be allowed to be a kid.
I should be allowed to be a child. I should be allowed to follow that. It's just so much healthier. And you wanted to. And the reason why they give homework. What are you giving homework for? For what? So you have retention. If you have to give homework should not be longer than 5 minutes. Your sister. We're not going to say which one. Okay, whatever. I'll say. So
One's dating, so we're not going to, it's not that one.
So Tovi is not that good at math. Math is not her strong point. She's very strong in other things, very high emotional intelligence. She could read a room in a second and feel like that.
Runs in the Sova family, whatever.
It does, yes. And she
Plugs for days.
Right?
she's
For days.
she's horrible at math, like really, really bad. Like really bad.
I bet she's better than me. I
Really.
promise.
But I had a little bit of an advantage because in my home, my sister Nechama was also really bad at math, and I used to do homework with her, and I would be laughing so hard because she was so bad at math. It would be like 7 + 8, and she's like 9,
74?
9, like no, 6. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, count with your fingers. Like, I would be laughing so hard, I'd be like, what is going on? She still can't do math. All the teachers would say, And what are you going to do? Carry a calculator everywhere you go? And the answer is yes. It's called a cell phone, right? You understand? You understand? Yeah. But it was so funny when people would say that to her. They'd be like, "You're not going to be successful." Like, oh, she's very successful.
What does she do?
Very successful. She's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Very successful. Doing numbers all the time. Okay, but she says, "I still carry a calculator with me." When they tell me it's a 30% markdown, she's like, "Hold on one second, 30% markdown."
ChatGPT.
Right. You understand? She has to see what that is. So, anyways, Tovi had a test, and she came back with a test, and she says, "Tati, I'm not showing it to mommy because mommy goes for the Rubin Academy of Excellence. And if you have a very bad grade that looks like a batting average, that's not going to fly. But in the Sova family, it's a batting average, right? If you're 333, you're an all-star." So she gives it to me. I started laughing hysterically. Why? It was 30 questions, 30 math questions. Tovi wrote on every single one of them 7. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. She got a 21 out of 100.
Wow.
I was laughing so hard because this teacher's sitting there. No. Yes. Yes. No.
She's a boss. She's such a
I
boss.
was imagining the teacher going through the thing.
gosh.
Don't you realize the kid doesn't know how to do math if they're writing 7 for every single one? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's straight up like, hello, the kid doesn't know math. We regret to inform you, but Tovi is really good at math. No, really? Thank you.
Good
I
morning.
understand. You understand? So, in answer to your question, standardized testing down, homework down. If you need to do it, 5 minutes max, and then afterwards, let the kids be kids. 100% you should. So that's what I would change. I would change standardized testing and that. And this is the crucial thing: teachers' unions. You must have that. Teachers have to have livable salaries, because what happens is, anyone who is talented in the teaching field, which there are many very talented people, and they have the passion, they have the it factor, which can give over to other Talmidim. I can't tell you how many students I have in my life. I've been teaching for 20 years. I can't tell you how many of them that come over to me now. They're married with kids, and they tell me, "I will never forget the class that you did." I don't even know what they're talking about.
Wow.
And I was teaching in a classroom. And mind you, my class is very chaotic. Yeah. But I will tell you that when you're giving that it factor and you have people that don't have livable wages and they have to hold down 4 jobs, you think they're going to be able to be effective at what they're doing? Why is it that college professors that are teaching the youth all the knowledge they need to know, and they have that it factor because they're obviously knowledgeable, they could go in any field and kill it, and they could do so good. Instead, they're teaching people, this is what you need to do to be successful. So that's why they get paid so much. So these are the people who are with our children, who are the next link for the future generations. And these people who are with our children don't get paid a livable salary. It's such a disgrace. And people will be like, well, that's just what it is. Why? Says who? Why? I'll never forget this. During COVID, somebody had there was a great advertising. It says, "Teachers, you won. The kids are driving me crazy. Tell us the magic elixir and we'll bump your salaries up 500%.
No way.
And that's exactly what it should be. It should be at least 500%. Whatever rabbeim or teachers, anyone, I don't care, motorists, anyone, any grade that you're in or your secretaries, whatever, our education is everything. Jewish people are smart. Can you imagine a kid going into a class where he feels the Rebbe doesn't like me, where he feels that the teacher is picking on him, or he feels that I don't have a fair chance? Why? You know why? Because the Rebbe has to do 4 other jobs. This kid is being a nudnik and asking all the same questions. The Rebbe doesn't have the patience to sit down with the kid and explain to him. Or the kid has dyslexia and that wasn't properly advocated for. Or there's so many things we could fix on that, and it's so easy to do. And people say, well, we can't do that because you know what? We'll figure out a way. We'll just figure out a way. And people will be like, well, no one's ever done it. It reminds me of a story. A friend of mine, I told somebody 10 years ago, I said to him, this guy was a real estate developer. He'd go to different places in the East Coast. I said, you know that South Florida is also part of the East Coast, part of the Atlantic Ocean, East Coast as well. He says, okay, what do you have to tell me? I said, I think you should invest in South Florida. So I'll never forget the words he said to me. You know what he said to me? Who invests in South Florida? No one's there. I said, exactly. That's why you should invest in South Florida.
Buy low, sell high.
Because no one is there, and you buy low and sell high. I said, this is not my field, but it's pretty mathematical and pretty straightforward what you need to do. He came back to me like 2 years ago, and he says, if I would have listened to you on 2 homes, just 2 homes, he would have made close to $25 million profit. 2 homes. So can you imagine if he could have bought out a ton of stuff.
Lots and lots.
Yeah, but why didn't he? Because no one's doing it. I love that answer. No one's doing it. So you know what? Be that someone. If no one's doing it, be that someone. And that's what needs to happen. We have to have more boots on the ground. We have to have more. And people say to me, Rabbi Sova, you're living in a pipe dream. You know something? Thank God Hashem has given us such affluence, such wealth. There are so many, thank God, we have so many Jewish billionaires out there. And these guys don't even know what to do. How many private jets, how many PJs can you get on? And how many watches can you wear? You only have 2 wrists. I mean,
how many APs can one man have?
How many, exactly? Yeah, you know, what are you gonna do? Like Patek is like what your like goddaddy. I mean, like how many? What else are you going to do? They're looking for creative ways to spend their money. Spend money on the children's chinuch. It's such a, and the sad thing is, it's a cycle of viciousness. Anyone who is talented, after time, either gets burnt out or they get stuck and they take it out on those kids, and then you have non-talented people with other people who are not talented, who shouldn't be teaching at all, but they're doing a little fix to try to, because they have nothing else to do, and the teachers, so everything is chaplab. It should not be chaplab. It should be very simple. It should be no standardized testing, no homework, and you should also have that there's higher salary wages, because that will immediately go directly to benefit them. And sort of like rabbis too. A rabbi should be paid a salary of at least $500,000. That's my opinion.
Wow.
I'm saying, I'll tell you why.
Is that? Yeah.
Because a rabbi is on call 24/7. You know that from the many times that I would get phone calls. I'll never forget this. I told the people on my goodbye speech to Shari Ezra, the Sephardic synagogue, for 12 years. I was there for a long time. Wonderful people. And I decided to move on. I got a more lucrative offer, and they didn't match it. So that's it. You don't want to match it? Fine.
Luka Doncic is out, baby.
That's right. But Luka got traded against his will.
Right.
That's a little different. But so I spoke with my Rebbe about it. My Rebbe's like, if you have another opportunity, grab it and see if they'll match it. And they did. Fine. Blessings on to them. So on my last speech, I told everyone the following. I said, you should know that a rabbi is 24/7 on call. I said, I'm just telling you this story for you to listen to now, so that way you'll appreciate whoever your rabbi will be in the upcoming future. I said, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from someone in the congregation.
You keep your phone on.
I keep my phone on right next to my bed, and I picked it up. I go, hold on 1 second. I quickly wash Negel Wasser next to my bed, and I say Berachas HaTorah very quickly. I say, okay, what's the question? Rabbi, what blessing do you make on potato chips?
What the?
3 a.m.
I say, wait a second. I said, okay, maybe he's trying to build up. He's nervous, something happened, and he's asking me, because some people do that when they're very nervous. They'll say something ridiculous things. So it's like as an entryway, like, I said, well, it depends. If it's Pringles, it's a shahakol. If it's other potato chips, it's a adomo. Okay. I said, is that it?
Johnny, anything else?
He said, is that it? He goes, no, that's it. I said, you realize it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He goes, rabbis sleep?
What?
But people really believe that.
Wow.
I could call the rabbi up at any time. So if you want to do that, you got to pay for it. Very simple. If you really believe that the rabbi is your slave, you got to pay for it. You can't be like, well, we're giving him pittance and let him go do that job and that job. Where is the rabbi? The rabbi is not here. Well, of course he's not here.
Because he's 7 different jobs.
Because you made that he had to do 5 different jobs, so of course he's not going to be there. So you literally made the catch-22. So it's literally the same thing. People, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to write a book. The name of the book is Superheroes Never Get Paid. Thank you, Batman. Thank you, Superman. You saved Gotham. You saved Metropolis. Have a nice day. Hi. Hello.
How does it work? I don't understand, because there's plenty of Rebbeim I've had in the past, and like they're all making what, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year max. How do they live? I don't understand.
They don't. They're
doing it somehow. Everybody in Lakewood's doing it somehow.
They are suffering tremendously, and they're such tzaddikim, and they're such heroes.
It's not normal.
They're superheroes. They're such tzaddikim and tzidkanias. They're taking it because they know if they drop the ball, it'll go into oblivion. I'll just give you an example. Imagine you had a little kid knocks on your door and says, I'm starving. Can I please have something to eat? You see the kid is really, really hungry. You hear the stomach growling. You're like, come in. Then suddenly you hear another knock on the door and another knock on the door. 40 kids are outside of your door and they start crying. They said, please, we have nothing to eat. What are you going to tell them? No? You'll say no.
Figure it out.
You figure it out. That's what people are doing right now. They're figuring it out because no one else is picking it up. And they'll be like, well, you have to turn them away. They have to learn. No, the people who are in charge have to realize these are heroes. These are people who, they don't want to drop the ball because they know what will happen. God forbid, people will be on the street You're fine with that? Some people will say, yeah, let the chips fall as they will. And people will figure it out. No, what are you talking about? By the way, I always say that. When you just said that, you have to appreciate now your Rabbeim, the ones who were good, how even more awesome they are. Because with all that background and all that stress and all that horrific things that they walked into class and says, okay, we're now going to start and let's go there. And you're like, wow, he's amazing. And he loves me and he knows everything about me. And that's to the detriment of him and his family. That's the detriment to his career. That's the detriment for him getting his credit card denied and mortgages not being paid and him having bounce checks, him having to go then, when it comes to simchas, begging family members that he has to have it, loans. If a guy comes to you, by the way, this is a FYI, if God forbid somebody ever comes to you and says, I need a loan for help, that means you take out a checkbook and write a check on the spot. Here you go. You don't need a loan. It's on me. That's what you should tell them. No, I feel bad. You know what? Here, it's a long-term loan. Whenever you're ready to pay me back, pay me back. If a guy's coming to you and saying, I need a guarantor, I'm going to a certain gemach, can you please just sign off? And you're like, yeah, I'll sign off. The guy's coming to you. That means he doesn't have the money. That's what he's saying to you. You know, they say a story with Reb Chaim Brisker that one time he was training a bunch of rabbis. I always say this, by the way. You go to any yeshiva of great academia, unbelievable. Reb Chaim Brisker, Reb Chaim al Rambam. Did you know Reb Chaim Brisker, he was together with his brother-in-law, the Nitziv in Volozhin, and they got in a little bit of a dispute about how to run the yeshiva. So Reb Chaim Brisker picked himself up and he left. Now, just follow this. I want you to follow this. First of all, Hashem rewarded him that the Soloveitchik family is known as the predominant yeshiva family. Mm-hmm. Which yeshiva has never heard of the Soloveitchiks? The Berlin family. Bar Ilan is his son.
University?
Bar Ilan University is Berlin.
Ah.
Bar Ilan University is that family. Very smart, super duper smart, made great investments. And then they made it into endowment funds. And they decided to name the university. They said Berlin sounds like Germany. We're going to change it and make more Hebrew. And we're going to change it, Hebraicized it to Bar Ilan. So that's Berlin. So Reb Chaim was mevater, walked away. Hashem gave him and rewarded him, the yeshiva family. Now watch this. He became the Rav of Brisk. He wrote a Perush. He wrote a thing on the Rambam. Commentary on the Rambam, on Maimonides. And that is learned in the yeshiva world as brilliance. I don't know when he wrote that, but he clearly was writing at a time, probably when he was a rabbi. People used to come knocking on his door in the middle of the night with a baby wrapped in a bundle, saying the baby's name, the parent's name, and the baby's birthday. That's it. Hold on to my baby.
Whoa.
He raised a number of children like that. Reb Chaim Brisker. And his house was known to be like a hotel. People would come in and out. People would sleep in his bed. He sometimes would sleep on the couch. Sometimes he would sleep on the floor.
Wow.
Unbelievable achnos tzarchim that he had. Reb Chaim Brisker. So this same Reb Chaim Brisker, he was the Rav in Brisk, and he was training rabbis. And he told them the following statement. He said, to be a rabbi is good, but you have to have the fifth chelik of Shulchan Aruch. You have to have the fifth chapter of daily Jewish laws. They said, what do you mean, Rabbi? There's only 4. He says, no, the 5th one is common sense. You have to understand what is the person really asking you when they're asking you a question. So as he's saying that, somebody walks in and says, it was right before the holiday of Pesach and Passover, and they came over and the guy says, Rabbi, I want to know, can you fulfill the mitzvah of the 4 cups of wine with milk? So he turns to his aspiring rabbis and says, new guys, what do you have to say? And they go, well, milk is considered a very important drink, and technically you could do this with that and that with that. Da, 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 da. He's listening to all them. Very good, very smart, okay, very insightful. So yes or no? The guy's waiting for an answer. All of them said in unison, yes. You could. Reb Chaim says, beautiful. Reb Yid, you heard what they just said. The answer is yes. I concur with what they say. It's true with everything they said. The answer is yes. Hold on one second. He gets up. He walks into his office. He comes back with a wad of cash. He says, have a good Yontif, have a good holiday, happy Passover, happy Pesach to you.
He goes, understood.
What?
Whoa.
He says, okay, I'm going to learn with them, please go. And he gave them the money and the guy walked away. And they were so confused. Like, he didn't ask for anything. He says, stop. You guys failed the 5th chelik of Shulchan Aruch. They're like, what are you talking about? He says, I told you, common sense. He says, let's back it up. What did he ask you? Can you fulfill the mitzvah with 4 cups with milk? No. Can you fulfill the 4 cups of wine on the night of Passover with milk? No. He's like, so what did he ask? He asked the following. I am so poor and I was not able to procure money to buy meat because one of the 4 cups that you make is after grace after meal, Berachas Hamazon, and that is after you ate a meat meal. But if you had meat, you can't make the blessing on the wine if it's milk. So he's saying right now, could I fulfill the mitzvah because I'm dirt poor and I'm too embarrassed to ask for a hand-me-out? Can you please help me out? That was his question. And they found out afterwards, that was exactly the story.
Whoa.
So you have to know, when someone is talking to you, what are they saying? When you have Rabbeim dropping like flies, and if you have people now in communities throughout the world, they're like, we can't find teachers. We just can't find them. Of course you won't find them. You're going to find somebody that is going to go to a day of absolute misery and not even get paid properly for it? Why? Because you need to do the right thing. It's okay. Let someone else do it. I don't want to do it. And you know something? This madness has to stop. It really has to stop. It needs to be worth it for you to. Now you're going to say, well, back in the olden days, we didn't have people like that. And in the olden days, really, I love those people who say that. These are the same people who have air-conditioned houses. They have the most latest model car. And these people have very big comforts in life. They don't have outhouses next to their house. They are telling people that they should live a life of poverty. You chose to live this life. I chose to live the life. Just like police officers, heroes. Firemen, heroes. Or any other person who technically is in a government position gets a pension because you're doing the dirty work for the masses of people. This should be no different. This should be adequately paid. Rabbeim's salary, starting salary, should be, it's a simple mathematic thing. If you are a regular frum person, it's around 35 to 40K a person a year.
Wow.
That's how much you need to survive. So just do the math. If you have a family, let's say, I don't know, husband and wife, and let's say they have 8 kids. We'll make it simple math. So there's how many people? There's 10 people in the household. And it's 35, 40. We'll go with 40. That's $400,000. And some people told me when I said that, I said, it's more than that.
Wow.
It's probably more like 550, 600. How are they doing it?
We're not talking about luxuries. We're talking about basic necessities.
Basic.
Tuition, basic clothing, food.
Basic. No crazy vacations. Everyone says, well, nowadays, you know why? They're going on credit card. And they need to do that. By the way, I will tell you that. They have to go on vacation because if not, they're going to snap. They will go crazy.
Shelf life's going to be like 2 days.
I will tell you that. I can't tell you. I'm telling you as someone in the trenches. People come to me. I myself feel that sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing this for? Why? For what? Well, someone has to do it. You can't do that. Even Superman can't hold up the building for that long. Right. Superman also needs help. He needs help. It's just, you can't do it. You can't. It's not possible. You can't always rely on the superheroes to do that. And you're going to say, well, they're not going to drop the ball. Someone has to take responsibility. At one point, COVID was I thought after COVID would happen, that would be it was like the rush of cold water. Like everyone would be like, whoa, oh my gosh.
This is what it feels like to have a bunch of kids running
These
around.
kids are monsters. Oh my gosh, how do they deal with them? Like what magic spell do they put them on?
Right.
And that's the idea. The idea is those are the things I would change. Those things, because you never know who's going to and I heard this beautiful line from Rabbi Yehoshua Sova. It's such a great line. I love this line. And then I'm going to follow up with a line from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rabbi Yehoshua Sova in their Shiva, he said, teach children like they're your grandkids. And Lubavitcher Rebbe said that when you have a doubt about whether or not to caress the child's cheek or to smack him, always err on the side of caressing that cheek.
Wow.
And it is so, so true. So true. You have to remember, they're kids. They're kids. Even if they're teenagers, they're kids. They're kids. They're children. And sometimes they make dumb, immature moves. I'll tell you a story. You did not hear the story. This is the first time I'm going public on this story. This story took place when I was in 11th grade. There was a friend of mine who misbehaved and he got framed. In other words, we were all doing something a little crazy, but for some reason they thought he was the instigator. They threw him out of yeshiva.
Wow.
And we were very upset because we knew it was the wrong guy, and they needed to make some sacrifice, and one guy had to pay the price, and we were very upset. It was the wrong guy. And we wanted to show the Rabbeim we were very unhappy with that decision. So everyone was thinking of different things. I decided I'm going to take matters into my own hand. Now, I'm an 11th grade boy. I was a good kid. I was a guy that never got out of line. Funny, but whatever. I didn't do anything wrong. But I was so angered by the fact that a friend of mine got hurt so badly. I wanted to show them that you don't mess around. So what did I do? I knew that a friend of mine had a lighter. And I went downstairs to the Mechina bathrooms, the high school bathrooms. And I took a wad of paper towels.
What?
I went over to the Rebbe's car.
What the?
I stuck the paper towels underneath his motor.
Oh my God.
And I lit it on fire.
What? To explode it?
Yeah.
What the?
Continue.
It started catching on fire, started going up, 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 up. And I remember I was behind, I was waiting to see catch on fire and explode. And suddenly the wind came and blew it out. I was like, okay, maybe that's a sign from Hashem. I shouldn't do that. And I went away. I looked. I saw underneath by the muffler there was a little bit of a burn mark, whatever. No hole, but a little bit of a burn mark.
Char,
but whatever. Yeah, that was it. Okay, fine. I always think about the following: what would have happened had it caught on fire? I wouldn't be here right now.
Well,
No way. No way.
what would happen?
I would have gotten thrown out.
And then?
I don't know. Think about anyone that gets thrown out from yeshiva. A very poor self-image. They think themselves that they're the worst person. You did that to your Rebbe's car? What's wrong with you? Like, what are you, a gangster? And my answer is, yeah. When you mess around with my friend,
Whips out the do-rag, gets tatted up.
you're going to see a side of me that you're going to regret. I always tell the people, you have to know. They say a medrash. There's a medrash that they say somewhere. I tell people, I say, I totally understand this. They say a medrash that there was a world-class artist that knew how to draw people's faces perfectly. So this is a medrash somewhere. They sent this world-class artist to the midbar, to the desert. There's a lot of questions on this, which is why would someone commission that? And then the person saw Moshe Rabbeinu and drew an absolute likeness of his face. Then they took that picture to someone who could read foreheads and read the face and all that. And we look at him and says, why are you bringing a mass murderer to me? Who is this guy? He killed thousands of people.
Oh my gosh.
They're like, what? This is Moshe Rabbeinu. He speaks to God all the time.
What?
So the Medrash says they came back to Moshe Rabbeinu. The questions people have on that story is, how did he see him? Because they were in the Anan Yaakov and the clouds of glory. How did he have access? Okay, whatever. There's questions on the story. But the Medrash says on this that when they went to Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, sure, the higher you go, the bigger your Yetzer Hara, the bigger your inclination. The greater you become, the greater the challenge is. I always tell this to people all the time, if you're suffering from a challenge, so if it's South Americans, I say, if Messi is guarding you, that means you are a challenge to him. Mm-hmm. If you've got some guy in the JV team, it means you're not good. But if you got the best of the best, toe-to-toe with you, that means you got something. There's something that you have. So if the Yetzer Hara is trying to knock you down, that means he sees something in you that you don't see. He's trying to stop that greatness. He's trying to stop it. So he's an angel from God. He's obviously trying to stop you. So obviously that should empower you. Be like, you know what? I'm going to go forward, right? So a person who has great power has great responsibility, as the great uncle told his young nephew Peter. So Uncle Ben was right when he told Peter Parker, he says, with great power comes great responsibility. When you have that power in you, you literally can change things. So if you have the power for bad, that just means it's untapped good. You have to recognize that. So no matter where you are in a situation, you have to look at yourself and say, I made bad decisions. Okay, now what? You could capitalize on that. Because I made bad decisions, I can now do that. But you have to know within yourself, the greater you are, the greater the capacity you have to do evil. And I say that all the time. You've heard me saying this multiple times. If I was not doing this, I would be a bad dude. I know I would be a bad dude. 100%. You've heard me saying many times, there are many ways that you could wreak havoc, destroy people's lives, hurt people. He could tell you a lot.
Where does this come? I get so, okay, I don't know if we're going to put this on the pod, but like, I see so many different sides. No? There's like the inspiration part, and then there's like the dark part, and then there's like the intense part, then there's the passionate part.
You could be Master Yoda, go, with great power from the evil, don't let the good take over, right? So you'd have something like that. It's always, whatever he says, if you say it in a different like language, and invert it, then somehow it makes a lot of sense.
No, it's just cool. I'm just noting, like, it's cool to see
but it's one
different
and the
parts.
same. No. It's one and the same. Evil is really good, but it's the same coin. It's the flip side. It's the heads and the tails. It's the same coin. So you have to recognize that. Somebody is really good and inspirational means if they could flip that, there's something else. That's just the tip of the deep iceberg.
We were just speaking about dictatorship. They have that power of captivating audiences.
Unbelievable
Same exact
charisma.
skill.
Unbelievable charisma.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, by the way, if you want a great question, a great social studies question, I love asking this to people. Is there ever a concept of a good, benevolent dictator? Somebody who really is looking out for the best interest. We have one. Biblically, we have one. Yosef HaTzadik.
He was a dictator?
He was a dictator. Oh, yeah, sure. There was a mandatory tax. 20% would go to the coffers. Everyone except for the priests. The priests, they got parsonage and they were able to have freedom and not be taxed. You were a citizen of Egypt, you did any 20% tariff tax.
Wow.
All the time. And he enforced it. They lost count of the amount of grain they had. You realize what that is. Egypt was very smart with mathematics and science. I always tell it to people, like if I was not involved in like learning, Egypt would be my thing.
Well, pyramids, you're into the pyramids.
Not just
now.
the pyramids, just their whole culture and civilization. And for thousands, to this day, we have sonogram, x-rays, and all these different scientific ways that we can find out. People have no clue how the mummies still have flesh on their body. They look like they're sleeping. You know that, right? The mummies, when they're sleeping, they still look like
that was the purpose of it, that they're still embodied.
no one knows, and no one knows how they embalmed them and how they. No one has any clue how they did that. No clue. And by the way, if you want to hear something really, really cool, if you're at the base of a pyramid, I want you to do this. Next time you go on Google Images and write empty highway. And look at the base of the highway from, let's say it's wide. And as the highway is going further and further down the road, it's like a pyramid. Look next time, you'll see it. It literally looks like a pyramid. So the Egyptians knew that this world is a portal to another dimension, another world.
Whoa.
Which will make a lot of sense, by the way. You could Google this, that there are Egyptian pyramids with the same sizes, same amount of doors, same height in Mexico, Indonesia, and China.
Same dimensions, everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, same thing. How did that happen? Easter Island, they have these big, gigantic rocks made out of like stones. People have no idea. No one lived there. Who got there and why were they there and who was there? I have a whole thing. This is my own interpretation. I haven't seen anyone else say that, but I believe with the depth of my heart, they knew how to teleport. They knew how to break down atoms. Egyptians. They knew how to break down atoms and go to a totally different realm like that. That's why, by the way, that answers another medrash that says no one was able to escape Egypt. How do you know? Let's say somebody did escape.
Right.
How do you hunt them down? Very simple. They tracked you. They knew exactly where you were.
So
and then
crazy.
they went and
teleport you back.
Kishuf is
Black magic.
No, black magic is technology.
Wow.
Think about that. You know, you could have a phone and you're doing all that stuff. You could be on a flight halfway around the world just from a device. What? And then, by the way, when I was a kid, that was science fiction. They were able to look at it's only going to be a matter of time till you could actually move forward and then take the item out.
Wow.
It's only a matter of time.
Wow.
There's going to be another thing they're going to have, which is they're going to be expanding atoms, that they're going to have items which are micro-sized, and you put them in, and then suddenly they're able to expand, right?
Wow.
But that's just for the brief future, and everyone will look back at 2025 and be like, wow, he was talking about it even back then. Way ahead of his time.
He was onto something.
It's like Jules Verne talking about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He was talking about submarines before they even existed. Like,
wow.
He already was somebody that understood. But Egyptians, by the way, they clearly had that technology. Some people even say that the Sphinx, if you look at it, Egypt, when you think of Egypt, what's the topography? What does the land look like?
Desert.
No, but what's it made out of?
Sand, yeah.
Where else is sand located?
Deserts.
And?
Beaches.
Beaches. What's
nice.
near beaches?
Water.
Water. Egypt actually was coated in water. And if you look at the Sphinx, the famous Sphinx, the top part is made of one type of rock and the other part is another. The third part is coral rock. It is actually like that of ocean water.
That's very
So they say actually, when people talk about like the city of Atlantis,
Yeah.
they say that could be Egypt and Atlantis actually were one and the same or whatever. And that makes a lot of sense with the pyramids, makes a lot of sense with a lot of these things, whatever.
Wow.
But that's a different
So
discussion.
interesting.
If you want, we can talk about that, Egypt,
Wow.
whatever. But that's
Round two.
Yeah, that would be round
Wow,
two. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, beautiful. Wow, what a conversation.
So interesting. So many
Whoa.
things going on. I wanted to say a little piece going back to like the whole system. My Rabbi Scott Freeman, absolute insane guy, the best. But he always, like, the reason why he doesn't do standardized testing or any testing at all is because his mahalach is, how could I possibly test the bacher on his relationship with Hashem? How could I possibly give you a test, you a test on the relationship that you have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Like, I understand the concept that, okay, like, you're in yeshiva and you're supposed to learn this, you're supposed to learn that, you're supposed to know all these things, but how can I possibly test you on your relationship with Hashem?
So in that statement, I will just say the following. When I give standardized testing, I make sure that, A, it's easy that they could be able to answer it. If they don't, I will call them over and have a discussion with them and say, oh, you meant to say this. And then I write in the answer and then give them a check, right? So I had one, so when I was grading my test, so there was somebody who was overseeing how I was grading. He says, Rabbi So, I need to speak to you. He said, how is it possible that everyone in your class, for all periods, for all grades and all homework, are A+? It's impossible. So I had to doctor up the grades. Some guys got a few A minuses, B pluses.
Better than they would have gotten.
They were not happy with that. They go, what? What did I do? I was like, listen to me. It's better you got that. It's better this way. But in answer to your question, 100%. Yeah. Standardized testing. Where did that take us? For who? For what? It's like they say a line. Treat the C students nicely because eventually they'll be your boss who is going to hire the B guy while you, the A student, is going to be the
custodian or something.
Yeah, the lab people. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And what do we do just to wrap up this fascinating conversation? We spoke a lot about somebody who does have that affluence, that this is where his priority should be. What would that look like practically moving forward? Somebody understands, which is a big step, I think, to be able to internalize that there is no way that us as a nation, and we spoke about coming together as one, if we do not have the younger generation informed, educated, and passionate about Judaism, they're the link to the future, like you said. Where do we take this practically of the different ideas that you were mentioning beforehand?
I believe that an endowment fund would be very good for people that they would be able to, let's say, invest, and the returns of this endowment fund would be able to give towards the salaries and just feel good opportunities and measure twice, cut once. They say, get the best and the brightest endowment funds. That's number one. And number two, this is what I'm about to say is absolutely insane, but insane times call for insane measures. You need to do that. You fight crazy with crazy. There's the only way to do it. And I just have to preface by saying the following. I was telling you about this on Shabbos, that there was a movie by Robin Williams, and the name of the movie is called Toys. There's some scenes in there which are not safe for work, but I still remember, I was a young kid, and I remember there was a certain scene, I'm like, that is brilliant. Why does no one else do this? What was the scene? And it's tying into your question. What's the scene? The scene was, there was a certain army that for the life of them, they couldn't understand how these unmanned, they didn't call them drones yet. They didn't even have that. This is way ahead of the times. They didn't even have the concept of drones yet. And they're wondering, how is it that a certain army had such aerial superiority that they were able to bomb and shoot and be so effective and do all these gutsy moves? And it was like crazy. And they were winning battle after battle after battle. And no one could figure it out until finally they infiltrated inside the headquarters, the nexus of where it was going on, and their jaw dropped. Who was pulling all the levers and controls? It was these young 12-year-old kids thinking they were playing a video game, trying to get the high score.
Wow.
These guys thought they were doing Call of Duty, right? You see some of these guys and they're like going in and they're like gangbusters. They're like, no fear, they're going in, bam, 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 and they're moving things, and like, what is going on, right? And they're just doing, so can you imagine if you had robots or drones doing that? That was the scene back then, this is 30-something years ago. They had that. So in answer to your question, very simple. The Rabbeim and the Maris, they're teaching the kids. The kids know who are the awesome people. Just like the kids know who are awesome professional athletes, and they wear their jerseys or they wear their favorite hat, and we're talking about billions and trillions of dollars of revenue that is
industry.
from little kids.
Yeah.
Little kids. So people push back and go, "That's a crazy thing what I'm about to say. The little kids are gonna." The answer is yeah. That's your future, and they're gonna do that. You know what you do? You have a merit system based on the kids, and guess what? Ready for this? The kids raise the money. Not only do they raise the money, and they're kids. You're like, well, they're kids. They have to be more involved in school, and they have to do that. And we're not going to, you know what? So put safety measures and make sure that they're not in an area that could be vulnerable. But you get them to start collecting for things that they're passionate about. They'll learn responsibility at a young age.
Other skills, communication, business, can't get better than that. Real
And,
life
and,
experience.
and they're passionate about it because this directly affects them because they're the shareholders which are getting messed over, and now they actually could dictate. We want Rebbe so-and-so, and we want Mora so-and-so. Now you're going to tell me younger grades? Fine, so we'll have a surplus from that. And then ready for this? What I'm about to say is going to be absolutely insane. Besides for them raising money, ready for this one? They know the score about scores. What do I mean by that? They're going to say, well, you're not allowed to gamble. First of all, according to the Ramah, you could, but if it's not for a business, you're allowed to. I could tell you boys of mine, students of mine, that I told them that I said, I'm just reading what's going on in the world. I said, for example, Baruch Hashem, I made good money on this, where when Russia was amassing all their forces on the border of Ukraine, I said, Putin is not backing down. He doesn't want to look like a fool. And by the way, and Trump realizes that. That's why he has to talk. I just spoke to President Vladimir Putin. He's a great man. He has to butter him up. And I tell him, you have to talk to him. So Putin doesn't want to look like a fool. If he's sending millions of Russian soldiers at the border, he's going to invade. Everyone's like, he's not going to invade. Is he going to be that crazy? The answer is yeah. He is going to do it. Who's going to stop him? And he's at the border. I said to myself, 1 second, wait. If he's about to invade, that means two things. Number one, that means anyone who procures, who makes missiles, guns, technology for ammunition, technology for, let's say, any type of warheads, or let's say any of that stuff, they're going to be doing very well right now because Russia's going to be putting massive orders because they're in the middle of a war. And Ukraine, too, is also going to be doing that. So I Googled and said, who produced that? And what do you know? Honeywell is a company that's all over the world, and they produce all that stuff. So I put some stock in Honeywell.
Let's go. I love that.
And then I said, wait a second. Russia's invading Ukraine. Ukrainians need to be in touch with their loved ones. How are they going to be in touch? How are they going to communicate? What are they going to do? How are they going to communicate with their family?
Cell phones.
Excellent. Ukrainian cell phone companies. I invested in them.
Wow.
Nice.
Boom.
I didn't know Rabbi Yehoshua Sova is such
that's
a,
what this
such
Ralph
a
Lauren sweater.
stock market professional.
People realize
That's
that when you
unbelievable.
see it. I'm just saying, when you see certain things, you know it's going to pop.
When did you sell?
I sold when it was very good, when in the beginning of the war.
Wow.
And all these different, I'm just going to say, kids know that stuff too. They know that stuff.
Yeah.
They can go over to you and tell you, I'm telling you right now, this and this team, they're going to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
Does it hurt to put a couple of dollars on that? I don't think so. And then you cash out. What did you
And
lose?
where does this money go towards?
You go towards that endowment fund. The kid gets a percentage. Every time that they hit, they get a percentage of it. And they're little kids.
Wow.
They're happy with a little
Nice.
bit. So this is literally win. They get a little bit. They're happy. They guess right. They feel good about their confidence. They get to decide. They're a stakeholder in what needs to be done. People have an endowment fund. The money keeps going. You're going to be building beautiful, beautiful communities. Healthy, happy children. This is not utopia. This is just... Imagine somebody in the 1800s say, and every home will have a working bathroom. Every home will have air conditioning and heating. Every home will have locks on their doors. Who speaks like that? There's going to be something called horseless carriages where you could go from one area to the other. Horses will not pull your carriage. Like, this guy's dreaming. What's he doing? But I say what the Panav Vishurov says. I'm dreaming, but my feet are on the ground. And that's what the same thing also here. You have to recognize this is literally what needs to be done to save the Jewish people. Everyone's just, they resign themselves and go, oh, we can't do anything about it. We're stuck. And therefore, the whole system is garbage. Really? When did Jews ever say that? Ever. Right. That, okay, we'll just take it on the chin, or we're just going to be stuck with it. No, absolutely not. We have the power to fight back. Let's fight back, and let's start right now.
Beautiful. Wow. Whoa.
Eradicate the victim mindset.
Whoa. It's wild. Either
What
part
a-
of the problem or be part of the solution. That's
Yeah.
wild. Wow. I love the passion. Beautiful. Okay, we're just going to wrap up. That was
Phenomenal.
Wow,
Absolutely
that's
phenomenal.
really wow. 3 rapid fire questions. First one: what's the one character in a movie or novel that you relate to the most?
Where did this question come from?
This is so up my father's alley.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
Indiana Jones, but I would say that in Star Wars, I didn't like that he played Han Solo, but he's probably my favorite. My
Why is
favorite
that? Why do
movie
you relate
character.
to him?
No, he's just, first of all, he's Jewish, by the way.
Okay, nice.
First of all, he's Jewish, and he's like a cool guy, you know. But also, I'm dating myself because apparently there's a lot of other cool guys out there. I never watched any of the Bourne Identity, any of the what's his name? What's the Jason Bourne? I forgot the actor's name. So whatever his name is, Matt Damon, right?
Oh.
So I don't know if I would say Matt Damon, but I would say Harrison Ford, more of like the adventure, trying to do the right thing, and just doing epic stuff all the time.
Nice. I like
Beautiful.
that. If you could instantly master any skill or talent that you don't currently possess, what would it be and why?
Guitar playing.
Ooh.
I feel, first of all, I'm musical, and Hashem has blessed me with a good voice, and
That did not pass down to me.
I feel that people, yeah, but you have passion, and people like that, and I feel that people really connect on a different level when they're singing. They say one of the reasons why Hashem specifically had that the Levium should sing in the Beis HaMikdash is because when you're surrounded with sound, you're in a different. Just to prove it to you, by the way, I remember one time. I remember hearing this. They said that the Purim is coming up, and they said that by Achashverosh's meal, they did not have any music. Why? Because he knew once people start hearing music, they'd be like, wait a second, what are we doing here?
Wow.
Even if people go to these crazy places where scum is and low lifes are, they have to play music to get people in the mood. But afterwards, when people are buzzing after, they're like, wait a second, what just happened, right? Because they didn't even know where they were.
It's like putting you in a different realm.
You are in a different realm. They say that the gate of Shira, of song, is right next to Kedusha, right next to holiness. So that's why they're literally intertwined. They're right next to each other. And that's why it has to be that people have to feel that. So song is a very powerful thing. It transports people to other places. People could have real feelings. And I feel that that's something that... And when I was younger, my mother tried to get me to do guitar and violin and piano.
That's probably why you don't play it now.
And I just was not interested. But that's something that really be something that I would like to do. Another thing.
Right, better late than never, by the way.
It's true.
Why don't you get started?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, my mother sent me a guitar one day. She
nice.
sent me a guitar. Hey, we have it in.
Friendly reminder.
Yeah. Sent me a guitar. I would say also another thing that I would say 2 things, but it's the same thing, which is to try to reach as many people as possible. Guitar song always goes past the international boundaries of people to being able to speak and being more of masterful in other languages. But it's the same idea, which is communicating to people and connecting to them.
Beauty. And the last one is that if you were to write a letter to your younger self, what advice or encouragement would you give to your younger self?
Don't be afraid. God has a plan for you, and He's always good. He's always kind. Assert yourself and still be a good person.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Chazak.
Rabbi
Okay,
Yehoshua
wow.
Sova, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It's an
What a
absolute
pleasure.
honor.
Wow.
And I'm buzzing right now. So much going on.
Thank
It's
you.
an
Thank you for
absolute
having me. You guys are
Super
fantastic. Keep up with your fantastic work. Subscribe. Relatable podcast with Mo and Aryeh. It's amazing. Great content, great hosts, and more importantly, great people to inspire all of us and spread the light. Thank you for listening.